Once again, thank you for tuning in to the Trill Truth Network. I am the Trill Truth, providing the Trill Truth. And today, of course, breaking news, we'll be discussing the James Harden trade. I'm residing here in H-Town, reporting to you live from H-Town, giving you an H-Town perspective. Now, first and foremost, what we're going to do is smash up the likes. So thank you guys for tuning in, but we need you to smash up the likes on the video. We also want you to like, share, and subscribe this video if you like the content. We got plenty more to come. We also got the Patreon page coming up. A lot of different things, merch and everything of that nature. But we really appreciate all of your support. But now let's get back to the subject. Once again, as of yesterday or last night, James Harden came to the podium in the post game after getting their butts handed to them by the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James and AD. And basically he said that the Rockets weren't good enough and he didn't see any way that it could be fixed. Basically saying that, hey, I want out. I've been saying I want out. This team isn't good enough. I've literally given everything that I can to the city and to this team. And there's nothing else I can do. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what he was saying. Then, of course, John Wall basically came up there saying, like, okay, guy, you on our team and you just basically quit on us after 9 games. Really? And DeMarcus Cousins basically came up there and said, look, I came to Houston to play with John Wall. And I really don't care if James Harden gets traded whatsoever. Doesn't make me any difference. And also, DeMarcus Cousins led on to basically continue on and say that he felt disrespected by James Harden and how he approached not only camp, but coming in for this season. And I want to put some respect on James Harden's name first and foremost before I go in. I want to say that James Harden is a top 3 Houston Rocket of all time. And the only reason why I say top 3 instead of top 2 is because my top 2 is Hakeem Olajuwon and Moses Malone. Hakeem Olajuwon, of course, because he brought the 2 back-to-back championships, and Moses because there would not be a dream without Moses, because Moses, of course, took Dream under his wing after already being a great player. Moses was already MVP, already had accumulated a veteran career that was already probably Hall of Fame worthy before he even started working with Dream, who was at the time coming out of college out of U of H. And Moses was a great Rocket himself, leading the Rockets to the NBA Finals, winning a championship with the 76ers. But we're focused on the Rockets' history here. Moses Malone was just a great man as far as the city is concerned. Of course, anybody who plays basketball in Houston, Texas, we all go to the Fondy Recreation Center. The Fondy Rec would not be the Fondy Rec without Moses Malone. So, with that said, there is no superseding the legend, Moses, because like I said, my number 1 is Dream. And if there's no Dream without Moses, then Moses is my de facto number 2, and there's no topping that. Thus, James Harden is the 3rd Rocket I rank top 3 of all time. Also, I like to put respect on his name, given that I did have an opportunity to go to several of James Harden's events that he has produced out here in H-Town. He's done a lot of great things in the community. We even got a chance to meet his mother, whom through their charitable works, going to a James Harden Foundation event. They actually gave my son, who's 5 currently, Gave my son a free bike. So, I have nothing but respect for his mother, his charitable works in the city. I actually got a chance to see a Travis Scott concert for $20 because of James Harden, who had his birthday bash out here in H-Town. As many people know, when he does his birthday bash, he does it all out, all over the city. Great events. A lot of big name people come in, and I have to give the man respect for leading the Rockets to the Western Conference Finals multiple times, being an exciting, highly talented, highly productive player. And to be honest with you, I actually privately nicknamed him Video Game James because back in the day I used to play NBA Live, and my whole thing was the triple double, and I used to have super mega star player, like 99, 100 everything, and I used to put up crazy stats. The only player that I've ever seen that put up some of the stat lines that I put up on the video games is James Harden, Russell Westbrook. 50 point, 60 point triple doubles. This guy's got multiple. So much respect needs to be given to the future Hall of Famer James Harden for everything that he's done and accomplished here in the city of Houston. Prior to his arrival, they were a mess. Jeremy Lin actually got a big contract and was the face of the franchise for a period of time before James Harden got here. So, we have to put into context what he's done, okay? And, he's changed a few strippers' lives out here in H-Town, but that's neither here nor there. He does have a jersey for his legendary tricking that he has done, which I do not condone and do not co-sign at all. But, like I said, I want to give him the proper respect that he deserves because he is a top 5 NBA player. Definitely top 10. He's an all-time great. He's a Hall of Famer. And he's a top 3 all-time Rocket. With that said, I'm about to go in. And when I go in, we're going to talk and we're going to start with what I used to call him, even though I call him Video Game James, I used to call him James Harden because he didn't have any D. Honestly, I saw some mild improvement over time with James. I believe that, he gets a lot of haters, but to be quite honest with you, I kind of understand James Harden in this respect. Had he stayed in OKC and been the team player and all of this here, he would have been sacrificing hundreds of millions of dollars to come off the bench because he couldn't play with James Harden. And that was the reason. He couldn't play with Russell Westbrook. And that was the reason why they had him coming off the bench as a 6-man in OKC. It wasn't because he wasn't good enough to start, because to be honest with you, ever since he's been in the league, I always used to say that he was a better point guard than Russell Westbrook while they were on the same team. You could see the change of tempo, the control, the poise, the way the offense would kind of run a little bit smoother, just his pace. And being under control when he came into the game, you could see that he was a more well-equipped point guard or a more suitable point guard than, say, Russell Westbrook. And I used to think that, I wondered to myself, well, why don't they just play the guys together, put James at the point, Russ off the ball, and put him and play Russ sort of like Allen Iverson? Because to me, Russell Westbrook has always been a bigger, stronger, more athletic Allen Iverson. So I was like, well, why not just move him to the 2? But I'm not a head coach in the NBA. And I'm pretty sure they knew who their best 3 players were, but they just knew that it just wasn't something they could play over the course of a game more than, say, spot minutes when Kevin Durant was out of the game. So even with that said, James was 6th man of the year because, you put him on this, you basically got a starter coming off the bench, a guy that would probably start for most teams in the NBA coming off the bench, even as a young player. So they ended up going to the NBA Finals, of course, flaming out. Now, here at the Trill Truth, we don't just give you rumors, we give you facts, thorough facts that have been thoroughly researched here. And when I say thoroughly researched, I mean multiple sources. Coming out of OKC, there were a lot of words being said about James was always being somebody who was in the strip club, always being somebody who liked to have a good time. I'm out here in H-Town, so I know for a fact he'd be in the club. I know for a fact he liked to turn up, and I know for a fact he has a thorough appetite for what we call tricking, which is when you pay for the services of young ladies in some way, shape, or form. So this is well documented and well known. In fact, here in Houston, there's, like I said before, there's a strip club that has retired his jersey. He has a retired strip club jersey before he has a retired jersey. Anyway, so with that being said, this is a guy who likes to enjoy the nightlife. Now, he's not the first nor the last high elite level player in the NBA to enjoy having a good time in a strip club or the nightlife. See Lou Williams, who just had the issue with the Clippers. And I mean, from what I understand, he even got it, he not only VIP, but in Magic City, they got a whole meal named after him. Guy was in the locker room talking about coining the phrase and basically doing a trademark on lemon pepper Lou. So we're not going to condemn the brother for liking to have a good time. What we're going to look at is the factual, well-documented history of lackluster playoff performance. Now, I'm one to believe James Harden deserves every dime of his contract, both with Adidas and the Rockets and wherever he goes. The reason being is he was the guy here in H-Town that people wanted to see. He was the guy here in H-Town that got the Rockets on television. He was the guy here in H-Town that was the marquee. And when you're the marquee of a team at the time that was not only on television, winning games, and highly productive, you look at his stat numbers. Daryl Morey said that he was the greatest offensive player of all time. If you look at his numbers, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue, statistically speaking, against James Harden over the last 5 years. And from a basketball perspective, being a player myself who played, James Harden is unstoppable. Anybody who plays basketball and knows basketball knows that this guy is unstoppable. When I say that is, one thing that he does, we're talking basketball, okay, as a defender. And I used to pride myself on defense, and there's a lot of great players in the NBA that play solid defense. But as a defender, he lulls you to sleep with the dribbles. So all of this is strategic. And I can speak from personal experience going to a Rocket game. Ever since my son has been born and old enough, I've been taking him to Rocket playoff games. Uh, one of the games I took him to was when they played Golden State. I believe this is the year they had home court advantage and ended up flaming out in Game 7 when Chris Paul got hurt. In Game 1, I took the time out to say, you know what, I'm going to count this guy's dribbles. James Harden came down, and I counted his dribbles for, I believe it was 3 straight possessions. 3 straight possessions, I counted the dribbles. And he dribbled the ball 15 times per possession. Prior to, I mean, I'm talking just the overall, just count, just the 15. So you can imagine what the shot clock was looking like when this guy was doing what he did. But doing these 3 possessions, I was able to see why they allowed James Harden to be James Harden. In those 3 possessions, one possession, he drove, got fouled, hit 2 free throws. The next possession, he hit a step back 3. The third possession, he drove, passed the ball out. They ended up missing a 3. So, in 3 possessions where he dribbled 15 times, 3 possessions, he had a step back 3 and 2 free throws. That's 5 points. If they would have scored 2 points on each of the 3 possessions, that would have been 6. So he got 5 out of 6 possible points if we just talking twos. And they scored on 2 of the 3 possessions. So if you look at it from a perspective of basketball and being a teammate, I hate the style. I wouldn't want to play with that. No, hell no. Excuse my language. Hopefully you two won't strike me. But the Rockets were based on analytics and Daryl Morey, as well as a system D'Antoni implemented where they primarily shot threes or drove to the basket. And I just told you, in these particular 3 possessions, he got fouled going to the basket, he hit a step back 3, and he penetrated, dished out for another 3, and they missed. So he's doing exactly what the system of the offense entails, which is we're going to drive to the basket. We're not even caring about mid-range. We're going to drive to the basket. We're going to finish dunks, layups, free throws, or threes. That's what we're going to do. We're going to live and die by that. And we're going to beat the Golden State Warriors at the time, who had KD, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Iguodala, Sean Livingston, and the crew. So this is the Golden State, the great Golden State Warriors team. Championship Golden State Warriors squad. So when people want to say anything against James as far as that is concerned, think about it from this perspective. When he first got to the Rockets, he didn't dribble as much under Kevin McHale. Prior to Kevin McHale being dismissed because he didn't want to play under him. And really because Kevin was going hard on him for defense. Because Kevin McHale was old school. But when James Harden was playing that style, which I'm getting to the point of as a defender, him lulling you to sleep. Really, after about 4 or 5 dribbles, a defender, we start to relax. It's just you're in a defensive position and you want to react or you want to force the guy one way. He's left-handed, controls great pace, tempo, and he doesn't just control pace with his movement. He controls pace with the ball. So when he's dribbling, it's sort of like a pitcher. All right, so if I was to break it down in baseball terms, he throws off-speed pitches. He doesn't just have a fastball. Like I would consider maybe Russell Westbrook from time to time to be a fastball. Boom, boom. When he goes into his motion, like, you know, when he sets you up and then he goes boom, boom, he's gone. Or, you know, inside that pump, gone. James Harden is bop, 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 and he's gone. So it's like, I got you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, boom, I'm gone. So it's like, and he gets you on a 9. He's not the fast guy. He's not extremely explosive. He's not super, but he's quick. Quick enough to get the inch that he needs to be able to get his shoulders just by you, which puts you in a position of vulnerability where you have to either foul him or let him finish. And this is why I say he's unstoppable. Because one, even if you're solid and you're on him and you're on the left hand and you're in position and you're under him or you step back, mind you, his go-to move is the step back, specifically the step back 3. And you've seen him break guys down, break guys' ankles, make guys look stupid and silly. And it's really because of the off-speed dribble. And it's not only that, but it's the off-speed dribble on top of the fact he's lulled you to sleep. He has great footwork. And when we say footwork, we're looking at the spacing he creates, along with the fact that he's 6'5", and he has a good release point on his shot. It's not necessarily as high because you can see him be contested, which is also why he gets a lot of fouls, because he's perfected what Reggie Miller used to do, which is kind of like where he kicks his leg out a little bit. So he can still make that shot when he kicks his leg out to draw the foul. But the bottom line is that once you're lulled to sleep, he gets you with the off speed, then he gives you with the step back. By the time you get close to him, you're in a position to either foul him or you got to avoid fouling him. So he puts you in vulnerable positions because even though he's not the most explosive or fastest guy or most athletic guy, all he needs is an inch to get his shoulders. And once he gets his shoulders, he's strong. So he's able to put the ball in places where he can visibly be seen being fouled. He also knows how to play to the official by using things. He's a great actor by using his head snap. His head snap and just his overall just body movement. He has great body control. That's why you see him get a lot of and ones. He has what we call, like, if you know, you got Kyrie Irving, who is his new teammate now that he's with the Brooklyn Nets today, who's Uncle Drew. Well, James Harden always, to me, played and looked like Uncle Drew on the court in the NBA. And, you know, his whole style was like an old man's game, even as a young player. Now, this is just to acknowledge what makes James Harden great, why he's unstoppable. why he's been able to put up such astronomical numbers. Because a lot of people kind of try to degrade the numbers based on D'Antoni's system, because everybody who plays in D'Antoni's system puts up decent numbers, and that is true. You have his new head coach, Steve Nash. Steve Nash, 2 MVPs in the same system. But guess what? James Harden is bigger, stronger. He's not as good of a shooter as Steve Nash was, but he's just bigger, stronger. And Steve Nash used to dribble the ball all day too. However, Steve used to move. He wasn't in one spot. He used to utilize more of the pick and roll, where James uses a lot of isolation. Where I'm going with this is that style made him over 200 something million dollars with an Adidas deal. That style got him the MVP. And to be honest with you, I thought he beat Steph Curry the year prior to him winning MVP. I think James Harden should have at least 2 to 3 MVPs legitimately. At least 2. And you can just look back. The players voted him MVP over Steph Curry. That was James Harden's MVP. The year the players voted him MVP, I had him MVP too. And then he won one straight outright. So you look at that and you have to respect it. And you have to just give it what it's due. The man is a great player. Now, back to his performances in the playoffs. One thing I cannot and will not ever give him a pass for. They lost and got blown out by the San Antonio Spurs with no Kawhi Leonard. At home. In a game 6. Favored. And he didn't just play bad. He set the record for turnovers. Oh, he had one of the worst games. I mean, I don't think it was that game, because I think it was the year that, I think maybe it was Golden State. But one of these closeout games, he set the record for turnovers. Most turnovers in a game. In a playoff game. So he didn't just perform bad. He was historically bad. When he was with OKC, one of the biggest issues and why they couldn't get a win against Miami in the NBA Finals was James Harden wasn't James Harden. Didn't perform up to the James Harden level at which he performed during the other series with the Spurs and with others, getting them through the playoffs to the finals. And because of that, Russell Westbrook and KD had to shoulder a burden, and it kind of threw the team off. Plus, when you're not a great defender and you're relied upon for your offensive production and you don't produce, especially when they're relying on you to come off the bench and produce, and you don't do what they're expecting you to do, it just hurts everything. And that domino effect comes to when he becomes the MVP and the most important player and the star here in Houston. When it comes down to it, it wasn't just that loss to San Antonio. The day that'll live in infamy here in H-Town is when he and Chris Paul first got together, having the Golden State Warriors down. No Iguodala. Okay. They win. I believe, yes, they lose, get the game 7, but they have home court advantage. They played their way into home court advantage against Golden State. They had the game won. If you look back at these games, The Rockets had 20-point leads. They had big leads. Game 6 and 7. They would get a lead on Golden State. Golden State would come back. But in this particular Game 7, it wasn't just that he played bad down the stretch. It was that the Rockets as a team missed 27 straight threes. And as professionals, one of the things that cannot be understood about that is you are professional basketball players. This is what you do. You mean to tell me you can't accidentally hit a three? And some of these threes were wide open. So, I mean, it was just horrendous for them to lose that game. And there's no excuse for it. Now, James Harden has gotten everything he wanted here in H-Town. He wanted Dwight Howard, they got him. He wanted Chris Paul, they got him. He wanted Russell Westbrook, they got him. You know, and from what I heard, he also didn't want to play with Westbrook no more. They got rid of him. And he thought Wall would be a better fit. They got him. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it was time to go. The relationship had ran its course. Last year with Russell Westbrook, they tried the small ball. They gutted the big lineup out. They got rid of Capella. They didn't play Tyson Chandler at all. PJ Tucker's always been a dog. Still is. Not much of a scorer, but you need that glue guy on your team. In fact, if PJ was to lead the Rockets right now and go to a contender, he'd help somebody win a championship. Or he could. But the bottom line is that James Harden, I put him in the same category of a Paul George when it comes to playoffs and their performances. They're not reliable. And when you have a guy who's the marquee, the number one guy, who commands a bulk load of the salary cap, who also commands to be treated like a superstar from the organization up and down the line. You need him to be a leader. You need him to exude a certain amount of professionalism that is a residual domino effect down the line of the team, because they feed off that energy. And I hate to say that, you know, because basketball, just like football is more of the ultimate team game. But basketball is a team game. However, players make a difference. That's why NBA players have more control and they got more power. Because one guy out of 12, and specifically while on the court, one guy out of 5 can impact and change a game, dictate wins or losses. And when a team is relying on you for the entire season, when it comes down to the games that matter, let's just look at the bubble. And to be quite honest with you, OKC should have eliminated the Rockets in the first round. And if they would have lost that game, that would have been one of the biggest devastating blows to superstars ever given out. I mean, it would have been devastating, not just to the Rockets, but it would have been utterly devastating to the legacy of James Harden and Russell Westbrook for them to lose to OKC. And they should have lost. And to be honest with you, they didn't win that series. OKC lost the series. And here's how. If you go back, Chris Paul doesn't put up huge statistical numbers comparable to, say, Russell Westbrook and James Harden. However, He controlled the pace and the series by his play. He showed and he proved separation of himself between Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. OKC wasn't supposed to make the playoffs. They were a young team with a lot of parts that were talented, that were solid parts, that were what we call garbage pail. I'm not garbage pail, but these guys were hard workers. These guys were grinders. These guys were tough, and they were young, vibrant. They had some athletic guys on that team, but all in all, these were not by any shape of imagination outside of, say, Adams, and Paul. You didn't really, most people didn't know the guys on that team. Excuse me. And in Game 7, the reason why the way they lost that game, Chris Paul has a bunny, a shot that he makes a zillion times. He misses a 5-footer in the lane that would have basically changed the game. They had the game won. There was also a turnover that was made down the stretch by OKC. So they had a turnover and a missed bunny shot that would have won the game for them. On top of that, James Harden was not playing great once again. He had a horrible game. He saved his NBA cred with that defensive play at the end of the game with the rookie who had been locking him up. His fellow alumni who had been locking him up. So, if you really look at it, in my eyes, OKC won the series. They weren't supposed to be in the playoffs. They took the Rockets, who was supposed to be a championship contender, to Game 7 and really should have beat them in Game 7. And we're not even going to go into the other games of the series where I thought that the OKC should have really won and should have gotten the Rockets up out of there. We're not even going to go to that. We just going to focus on the elimination game. Okay? But OKC should have beat them. Now, when they played the Lakers, okay, well, you pretty much knew they were kind of outmatched at that point. But the proof is in the pudding. Now, people can say what they want to say about Russell Westbrook, but Russell Westbrook wasn't with them those years before. And while James Harden has gotten the Rockets to the Western Conference Finals, which he deserves credit for, he has not been able to live up to his billing when it counts. It's one thing to lose. It's another thing to completely be one of the reasons why you lose. Repetitively. This is, like I said, like Paul George. It's a consistent thing with him. So now let's fast forward to this particular trade and what happened. So the Rockets end up getting Victor Oladipo. And I'm just going to get to the nuts and bolts of what happened. Okay. Brooklyn got James Harden. We're not worried about the Cavs. We're going to talk about what's the immediate effect. Because the Cavs, to be honest, I don't know what they're doing. They got all these bigs everywhere. You got Drummond. They got Allen. I mean, my gosh. They got Love. They got JaVale McGee. I mean, my goodness. They got the biggest team in the NBA. What they're going to do with all that size, I have no idea. So we're not even going to discuss them. We know LeVert ended up going to the Pacers, which brought the Rockets' Victor Oladipo, which is an important deal because now you can pair him with John Wall in the backcourt. You still got PJ Tucker. You got guys coming off the bench. You still got House. You still got Cousins. You still got Wood, Christian Wood, who's been playing great this year. Rockets got a solid team. And to be honest with you, the Rockets won the entire trade. And here's why. Everybody knows Kyrie has kind of been out of his mind lately. I cannot judge that gentleman because, I've had some issues, with the loss of loved ones. And it's been a lot of different things that have taken place within the last year or so. Not just in my life, but the lives of a lot of people around this country and in the world. So I can't necessarily speak on any judgment of Kyrie Irving's mental health at this particular point. I have respect for people going through some things or what have you. However, I will say that when you're supposedly an NBA star being paid upwards of over 30-something million per year and you have a Nike deal, all of this money is guaranteed. When people are paying you guaranteed money, they need guarantees or they need stability. They need something that is consistently available, verifying the worth of their investment. And Kyrie simply is not that. When it comes down to professionalism, and when I say that, there shouldn't be a situation where you contact teammates and tell them that you're not going to play and do not communicate with the head coach or the general manager on the team at which you are supposed to be answering to. Even if you don't call everyone, you should be contacting the head coach. Even if you don't speak to the general manager. If you have the ability to contact players that you play with on your team, then you should have the ability to communicate with the people that are supposedly over or in a managerial position within the organization over you. Now, as a man, I understand that one who considers themselves as their own man does not like the concept of having a boss because it's almost like calling another man daddy. As a grown man, somebody who's been successful, somebody who's extremely talented, somebody who also is intelligent, and has a huge ego, in some ways justifiably so, because Kyrie Irving is a special player, a special talent, and he's another one that's hard to guard, really because of his awkwardness. And when I say his awkwardness, the ability to not just finish off of either foot with either hand creatively. He also has not just the handle, but it's not just the handle. It's the fact that he lulls you to sleep with the dribble. He also controls pace very well. He also has a nice step back. But the fact that he can shoot so well with that handle and that off pace, also with his finishing ability, which is pretty much second to none. When you pair these two guys together, however, to me personally, it's worse than the Russell Westbrook combo. Chris Paul is a legitimate point guard. He's a prototypical point guard. Kyrie Irving is a scoring point guard. He scored first. Chris Paul likes to orchestrate an offense. The problem he was having with James is they weren't running really any offense. If guys are just standing around watching him dribble, the defense is loading up. Chris is like, hey man, look, let's do this. I get it, I understand, but let's do this. We need to switch it up. We need a B, C, or D. And James is really just strictly doing A. And when it comes to B, he's just standing off to the side. Sometimes not even really getting involved in anything going on with the offense if he doesn't have the ball. Specifically when he had Chris Paul. Now we fast forward to now with Kyrie. I mean, Russell doesn't necessarily dribble the ball that much. He's while he has his flaws where he can be out of control, he goes downhill. Once he makes maybe 4 to 5 dribbles, he's gone. You know, we talking about Kyrie, who does a lot of setting up just like James, but not as much. Now, I can't give Kyrie a lot of props because Kyrie has shown up in big moments. NBA Finals, playoff series, conference finals. And that's the one thing that they have. But when you throw in the fact that Kyrie is just an eccentric guy, you throw in the fact that James Harden is an eccentric guy, and both of them are different. And while James may not show up in big moments, he's more consistently showing up to practice in games. I mean, my goodness, if anything goes on in the world, Kyrie might just, like he's doing right now, just say, hey, man, look, I just don't feel like playing right now. As a professional athlete getting paid what he is, to whom much is given, much is required. You must be able to separate yourself and be a professional. You must be able to be mentally strong enough to play through, push through any and everything to produce. And that is why I don't believe the Brooklyn Nets will never ever win a championship with this team. And I'll bet whatever you need. Anybody want to bet? I'll take your money. You can't tell me that you can put these two guys that dribble the ball, that need the ball, that dominate the ball, that like to at times shoot with volume. You put these guys on the same team, even with Steve Nash running even the D'Antoni system. Kyrie Irving is not Chris Paul. And James Harden, while he still has the ability to be James Harden, man, he's at least 12 to 20 pounds out of shape right now. He's a pure basketball player. That's why he's able to play. And at times, if he takes the initiative and really applies himself, he's still special out of shape. Just this year, he dropped 44 and 17 first game back. No camp, out of shape, all of that. Fat, all of that. So, the one thing they have going for them is KD is efficient, doesn't need the ball in his hands as much, and doesn't really need a lot of shots to get what he needs. The Rockets, I believe, have a chance to be 4 to 7. 4 to 7, depending on who they play in the first round, which I really don't see too many teams. They don't match up, even with Victor Oladipo. They really don't match up well with the Lakers at all. They might have a chance with the Clippers because of PG. And you know PG has a chance to go and ghost. And Victor Oladipo is consistent and solid. You put him with John Wall, who is trying to prove something this year. And he's always been a great talent. I've always loved John Wall's game. Boogie's just working himself back. Christian Wood's been playing great. You got veteran guys filling in. I just think that the Rockets have a good chance of winning the first round series if, and only if, they don't run into teams like Portland, Utah, Denver, Lakers, you know, the Mavs with Kristaps Porzingis, who just came back tonight. They would probably give the Rockets a tough out and could possibly knock off the Rockets. So Denver, Portland, Utah, and now I just mentioned Dallas. Those teams could knock the Rockets out of the playoffs, and I would not be surprised. So if I was to put a futures bet on the Rocket season, I got them second round, depending on the matchup. And if they continue to slide here in the regular season, I think that they might play better without James Harden, with Victor coming in and fitting into Coach Silas's system. And I really want to see Coach Silas get a great opportunity to coach his team and show the NBA and the fans here in Houston what he can do as a head coach. I really am pulling for him. I just don't see the Rockets beating Portland. I don't see it. I think Big Dame Dollar with CJ McCollum, Nurkic, those guys, Melo, I just don't see the Rockets knocking them off, even with the team that they got. And you know, to be honest, like I said, I think they won the trade. And what they won the trade was they were able to get a solid 20-point scorer who plays hard and can play some defense in Victor Oladipo. And then they got all those draft picks, first rounders, and swaps. Now, do I think that that's a big deal? Not really for the Nets picks, because the Nets ain't picking nothing higher than 20. You're not getting lottery picks. So your scout team needs to be really, really on one. And they need to do their job for them to be able to get something back that legitimizes this trade. However, this will be exciting to see. I believe that the Brooklyn Nets do have a great chance of winning the East. However, teams that are playing them, to be honest, you're going to have to throw bodies at James, bodies at Kyrie. And my goal, if I'm playing the Brooklyn Nets, is I'm probably going to let Kevin Durant go off, and I'm looking to take away one of the two, either Kyrie or Harden. Because I feel like you can't really stop KD, so you want to play him, but you also want to play in a way that's going to make life uncomfortable for Kyrie and James Harden. So the goal really is to take those guys out. And if you can't really take one out, I mean, take them both out, you need to make it challenging for them to get off, which is a lot easier said than done. The best bet is to just attack them on the offensive end because this is not a good defensive team. DeAndre Jordan is solid, but at his age, with the mileage that he has on his body, I don't think it's good for you to rely on him heavily. And to me, the way their team is structured right now, they're going to have to need him to produce and be somewhat of a threat on offense while also providing that anchor on D. They lost Allen, and they're going to feel that. They've already lost Dinwiddie. Now they lost LeVert, who was coming off the bench great. It's going to be very interesting. I have the Brooklyn Nets definitely getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when they play teams who play together with experience, such as the Miami Heat, who made it to the finals recently. I think that they're just too talented for the Milwaukee Bucks. So I got them beating the Bucks. So I would say that I'm anticipating the Brooklyn Nets going to the NBA Finals. And this is not also given what I previously said, but this is also looking at the fact that Kyrie can go off and he shows up in the playoffs, and KD is KD. Even if Harden goes ghost, these guys are lethal enough to carry him through. When they get to those finals, whoever comes out of the West, who I'm anticipating it to be the Lakers, they have no answer for Anthony Davis. None. And if you put KD on LeBron, or which you can probably do, the Lakers have a team of guys that have been playing with each other. So there's a comfort zone. And I just do not see the Nets ever winning a championship with these guys. Specifically speaking, the fact that Kyrie Irving is so unpredictable and unreliable, and James Harden does not necessarily play a lot of defense, and they're a worse defensive team. Not to mention the fact that they have to basically figure out some kind of offensive plan without guys practicing together, which is basically just like AAU. So if you don't practice together and you guys don't have a chance to really play with each other on a consistent basis to kind of figure out how they're going to function as a team, and with COVID, where you got guys like Kyrie having to get or go through protocol based on going to a party. Anybody can be out with COVID at any time. It's just a very, very unpredictable season. And I don't think they have the solid foundation laid enough to really make things or get things to where it need to be to win a championship this year. Next year, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? Like I said, you got Kyrie, you got James. I know James going to Brooklyn with KD, he's going to be with Brooklyn. KD is with Brooklyn. Kyrie is the X factor. And that's my take on that. Please like, share, and subscribe. We got a lot of new content coming. Be on the lookout for the Patreon. Make a comment in the comment section. Give me some suggestions, and let's go. You have a good one. See you on the next one. Once again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the video. We really appreciate your support. Thank you.